when someone's working on their letter of intent, what do you think are the main goals? What do we need to keep in mind while we're writing it?
The most important thing that I tell my students when they begin is that the letter of intent is going to be the most important document that you include in the application. It's really, really important that writers that are applying for grad school be concise in writing their letter of intent or statement of purpose. You always want to talk about at the beginning of the letter of intent what your main research interest is in the first paragraph that will act as a thesis in your letter. So you want to really identify a field that you want to be applying to. Another important aspect of the statement of purpose is actually talking about specific faculty members in that department that you want to work with and what their specialties are that are interests of yours as well. Another kind of main thing that I always tell students, particularly first gen, second language learners and international students, is that, you know, we don't usually have a lot of funding in the bank. So one thing that you want to end your letter of intent with is saying that you would be a perfect candidate for a TA applicant for a TA residency. And so a TA assistantship, right? So this means that you would teach in the department, and they'll see that and they'll say, oh, well, this person could teach, this person deserves funding in a certain type of way. And this is a way to be able to get your graduate career actually funded. And so you want to make sure that you say that at the end of the letter of intent.
A lot of what I feel like I heard from you, especially in the beginning, is we have to be sort of specific. It can't just be, hey, I'm a great student and you've got a great program, because you mentioned personalizing, right? Yeah, maybe it's the same general letter of intent for each place, but we're specifying and personalizing to the department's needs, how we fit in, how we're different, how we belong. You gave some awesome tips about how are we going to fit with faculty interest, which faculty do we want to study with, how can we be different? How can we provide that information while also being concise? What's your advice there for how to balance that?
Yeah, I think that taking out all of the extra words like many or too much or all of these kind of like descriptive terms, I think just stripping your letter of intent of all of those descriptive words that we usually use to describe ourselves, like I'm really the best writer, right? That's such a like long sentence when you could just say I'm a good writer. And so you want to be very specific in the language, the verbs, the nouns, everything that you're using to put together that. So strip everything away to the bare bones and make it really, really concise. And I would only give yourself about 4 sentences per paragraph. And so the letter of intent is 2 to 3 pages max. And so, you know, the first paragraph is going to be about how you're a great scholar and what your specialties are going to be in the department. That's going to be about 4 sentences. The second paragraph is going to go into more in depth about what your research interests are, and that's going to be about 4 sentences. The third paragraph is going to be, you know, this is what I've done in terms of extracurricular activities, and already this is how I'm prepared for your department. Another 4 sentences. And then you're going to end with, you know, this is why I would be a great TA. You want to explain kind of like all of your extracurricular activities and all of your honors and things that are going to set you aside. It's going to be another 4 sentences. So a grad committee is not going to read past 2 pages. And so you just want to keep it concise and stripping that language of just the necessary words that you need.
How should a student or an applicant approach that CV for their grad app? Many people have not written a CV before this moment, I think.
Yeah, the CV is such a daunting task, especially when you've been in the workforce for so long. You have a resume already that's kind of tailored to what you do for life, for work, right? And a CV is just not the same thing. And I think that we should have a class probably like in college or like even in high school that tells the difference between what a resume and a CV is. And so, you know, just briefly, a resume is a a kind of concise list, basically, of your work experience, and a CV is a concise list of your academic experience. So you want to make sure that whatever type of work that you're putting into the CV actually relates to academia in some sort of way, right? And so there's really basics for what the CV should include, and there's certain type of formatting that you should have. So you need to have your CV, kind of be well organized and easy to read. You want to have your name at the top, kind of like a resume. But you really want to take out, all of that objective, what I'm good at kind of stuff that you have in a resume. And you want to substitute that with what is your education experience. So the education experience will go first. Do you have are you just getting out of high school? Do you have a BA? Do you have an MA? What are those things in, and what institutions did they come from? And then you're going to want to list your work experience as it relates to academia. So have you been a teaching assistant? Have you taught in elementary school programs? Have you done any type of after school programming? Have you done any manuscript editing? Have you done any type of, everything has to be really related to academia. You're also going to want to list your honors, any type of funding that you've gotten from the university. Have you gotten scholarships? Have you been on the dean's list? Have you done anything that you've been awarded for? And so you want to list that as well. You want to list all of your teaching experience, because they're going to want to see that, especially if they're thinking about granting you a TA assistantship. And you're going to want to list resources, references that these places could actually check in with. And so the references should not be the bosses of your work. They should be teachers that you've actually worked with. They should be professors that you've, kind of associated yourself with. They should be writers. They should be in some sort of like academic field. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a professor. It could be, if you worked at a preschool or something, you could have that person as a reference as well. But it all has to kind of, the CV is basically your curriculum vitae. So that's what it stands for. And it really is the vita that is going to show how you're going to be as a scholar when you enter the grad school program that you're applying for.
So your third document, we've already covered your letter of intent and your CV, but of course your school you're applying to will also ask for a writing sample. And I know that will differ depending on what you're going for. So can you tell us a little about how somebody might choose a sample and what they would want to really promote in themselves in a writing sample?
Yeah, so the writing sample is really difficult. I mean, this whole process is really difficult.
Yeah.
The writing sample is really difficult because you don't really know what professors are looking for. And those are the people that are going to be evaluating your application. And so if you are going into, say, a humanities space, or you're applying to the humanities, the page limit is going to be 20 pages. They're going to want to see something that's very specific to the discipline. And so usually if programs are not interdisciplinary, where they're focusing on many different disciplines, they're going to want to see that you're focusing on the discipline that you're applying for. And so that was something that I had to learn because I'm an interdisciplinary scholar. I use literature, I use history, I use economics, I use cultural studies all in one to write my papers. And that just didn't fly with a lot of programs that I was applying to. And so you want to be really, and I hate saying it because this is not the kind of writer or scholar that I am, but you want to be really disciplinary when you are focusing on the writing sample. You want to take something that's not such a big topic that you can't combine that and be concise in 20 pages, because that's what you're going to need for that writing sample.
When you're working with grad applicants, do you tend to talk with people who say, hey, I don't have a 20-page sample. I've never written an article. Should I make one? Or do people tend to have one from a class? How do people usually approach that?
Everyone's at least written a 5-page paper in some capacity of their life, right? Even if they didn't go to college, even just in high school, like high school teachers will have you write journals and you could like compile those together. So I just say that if you have 5 pages of something, you can turn that 5 pages into 20 pages. And so if it's a 5-page paper on, say, you're analyzing like a Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, you definitely, there's so much out there on Fitzgerald, right? And so you definitely also want to think like, do I want to submit a paper about a really conventional, very famous topic, or do I want to like go the other route and kind of like try and figure out how to make myself unique in a certain type of way? Either way is fine, right? And so if you have a 5-page paper on Fitzgerald, you could definitely, you would really want to start by reading all of the literature that's out there, all of the critique that's out there, and then inserting yourself into that critique in a different type of way. If you're writing about like a really obscure novel, then you're just going to want to kind of make an argument right away and then find all of the sources after. So it kind of depends on which route you choose. But I do think that like if you just have 5 pages, you are able to do a 20-page paper. And so it shouldn't be that daunting, even though I know it is. And I think that having somebody as a second eye to be able to read through it and just look for organization, look for kind of like, grammar errors and stuff like that to make it flow a little better, will even make you feel better after they read it, and you could sit down and then organize it in a different type of way. And yeah, it's not as daunting as it seems.
So thanks, everybody. Many thanks to Bernadine for being here and all that wisdom you just shared with us. Happy to have you.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Yeah, definitely. Good to see you. Bye, everybody. See you soon.